Coach Mann, thank you very much for joining us here today. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the team can continue to bring to this series. But can you just speak to the atmosphere that you've been able to build inside the locker room throughout the year?
Well, I think, culture is always a pretty important aspect of building teams, and I think it's a catchphrase word that's used a lot, but, I think that Coop has been trying to do that over the last, since he's been GM, and I think over the last year and a half we've been able to establish that, and we've had a lot of returning players, which is really good because they got to witness it last year for a few months, and obviously the first round of the playoffs last year didn't go as well as you would hoped, and set some goals early in the year, like getting home ice advantage we thought would be important, and we were able to accomplish that this year, and the fact that we were able to even stay in it right to the last weekend of the season for that division title just speaks volumes of the group of guys we got, and some of the additions we made, like Zayden Vergara and Overage, I only seen him play once last year, and he was a fantastic pickup and brings a lot of leadership on top of some of our returning guys. So it's been a work in progress, but you know what, it's been a fun group to be around all year.
I'm glad you brought up the players, because we've seen a lot of the players, the 20-year-olds, the 16-year-olds, are all getting along in that mentality where they know they want to play to the very end. They want to make it to the finals. What sort of atmosphere? Is it a contagious energy? And are there players that come to mind that are really leading the charge and getting everyone on board?
Well, I think, it starts with your leadership group, and they have to me, the leadership group is always an extension of the head coach and his staff. And I think between, Burnsy and Seti and Ewings has been here for a couple of years now, in addition like Pickle, who's been a heart and soul type of player that's added some leadership, even though he may not be in that leadership core. We wanted Battaglia to take a step, in terms of being that kind of go-to guy between maybe the 19 and 20-year-olds and the 16 and 17-year-olds. We thought there was a little bit of a gap there last year between those two. So we wanted to kind of bridge that. I think we've done a good job of that. And at the end of the day, we brought in some real good character people at the trade deadline. Let's not forget that, right? We brought in 3 guys that went to the Memorial Cup, won a championship, and you can't pay there's a premium for those type of players. So those guys have been really integrated smoothly into the group as well. And also the young guys that were drafted last year, they've been dialed in terms of, wanting to get better, and whether it was 3 minutes ice or a 10-minute ice or healthy scratching, they've certainly taken in a lot of information, and you got to give the older guys credit for integrating them into a team, because those type of kids can be left out, right, with the fact that they're not maybe playing as much as those other guys.
Yeah, I want to shift gears a little bit, because you talked about that experience that some of these new players have, going deep runs, as well as yourself coaching, even with the Bears all the way to the Calder. What sort of experience does that give you to go and direct the team in the best way you can? Yeah,
I think anytime you can bring that type of experience, obviously I had some real good runs in Hershey as the assistant coach and the head coach, and it's not easy, right? And I think that players have to understand that going into playoffs, and as the rounds continue or the games continue, that you got to try and stay even keeled as much as possible, right? And there's so much highs and lows, and the teams that can stay composed within those adversity moments, obviously you need some puck luck along the way. You don't win championships without a little bit of puck luck, but at the same time, for us, it's about compete, it's about structure, it's about playing to our identity and trying to manage those adversity moments that happen throughout a hockey game, because you're not going to go out and dominate a game for 60 minutes. And the teams that were able to manage that throughout the game usually has a little bit more success than the others.
What does it mean to have home ice advantage going into this first round of playoffs? Do you feel like that's the sort of energy where you have to go and build that foundation to shoot yourself forward?
Well, that's a great point, because last year, we lost in 5 games to North Bay. They had home ice advantage, and in our exit meetings, there was, I think, 3 players that was returning this year that made the comment about home ice advantage in the playoffs, and how difficult it was to play up in North Bay those 3 games. And obviously they had a very good team last year as well, but I think they got a little bit of a message there, just within the games themselves, of how important home ice is. So at the end of August, once we get our team together, we knew the conference would be tough this year. We knew there was going to be probably 6 legit teams that could potentially come out of the Eastern Conference, but we really talked about home ice advantage, and we were able to secure, the 3rd spot, which is awesome. But the fact that we were in it right to the end and kept talking about first place and trying to get home ice advantage throughout the playoffs, didn't work out that way. We were close, but at least in that first round, anything can happen. You got to get by the first round first, obviously, and then kind of reassess. But I think it's important for us, and players recognize that, and I think that was also important.